right, guys, Kyrie's playing pickup here, and choose out a teammate for turning it over. Griff, was Kyrie always this intense in practice?
Well, it's not totally out of character, but let's call that playoff Kyrie.
Playoffs? Just trying to win a game. Oh, man. Welcome to The Jump. Amino Hassan here, still filling in for Rachel Nichols, who's off doing Game of Thrones stuff somewhere else. We have a show today. If Friday was the day of Kevin's, today is the day of David's. Dave McMenamin, and ladies and gentlemen, David Griffin. Welcome to the show. Griff, of course, was the architect of the current Cleveland Cavaliers, winners of 3 straight Eastern Conference Finals and the 2016 NBA champs. Before that, he was a VP with the Cavs for 2 seasons, and before that, he spent 17 years with the Phoenix Suns, working his way up the ladder, the VP of basketball ops under Steve Kerr.
Wow.
A lot of highs, a lot of lows in that time, but I'm guessing biggest professional good of his career. See, hiring a loudmouth intern in the fall of 2006 will go on to annoy millions of people on cable TV. It's all his fault, cable. It's all his fault, America. By the way, right there, you know what we're looking at? That's the list of teams that we thought might take Goran Dragic ahead of us, and we're trying to figure out where to buy in.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Let's shout out to Todd Quinter. My man over there. So, Griff, you moved on from what happened at the end of your time in Cleveland. Let me ask you, what's next for you professionally?
Well, if it's not going to be hiring Amin the Dream again as an intern, you know, my goal right now professionally is to make sure all of ESPN refers to you as Amin the Dream.
Oh, man.
But I think I need to do what I would want our players to do. I need to grow and evolve and get better and spend some time doing that. And I don't know what that means, whatever it looks like.
I was about to say, that sounds like complete PR. So what does that mean, grow and evolve?
I don't know. I hope it means that I'm here on a regular basis. But I mean, quite frankly, I don't know what that means. And I'm really open to what it means. I don't know the answer, and I'm looking forward to finding out.
What do you think this guy should do?
I mean, why put him in a box? You know?
There you go.
He's proven he can build a championship NBA team. That's a pretty good skill set. I've also covered him in countless press conferences. Good at public speaking, too. So I think he's okay. Either way.
Either way. Well, it's time to revisit Kyrie Watch here on The Jump. Hey, he wants to be Batman, right? It's been 18 days since the news leaked to the press. Look at that. They got the bat signal going. Kyrie's trade request has been the story of the offseason since the leak. All of us in the media are speculating about what the Cavs will do and where it'll end up. This past weekend, Kyrie was subject to some criticism for his request. Former Cav Ron Harper said about Kyrie's desire to be the man, quote, "Youth, ignorance. It's always going to be a 2- or 3-star team. You're never going to be a guy who carries a team. You see, when LeBron doesn't play, you don't carry the team. It's never your team. You play for the front of your jersey. Your name is on the back of it." End quote. Griff, assuming there is one, what's the best solution here between Kyrie and the Cavs?
Well, I think Kyrie's going to end up getting traded. But I think what Ron was saying is really unfair to Kyrie. I don't think this is youth and ignorance. This is a guy who handled this situation exactly like he was supposed to. He went to Dan Gilbert privately, told him that he thought he would be happier somewhere else. The absolute worst thing this guy could have done was pretend to be all in and sink the ship from within. Most guys don't have the courage to do what he did. So that's not youth and ignorance. That's a little bit more courage than people give him credit for. And this is a guy whose list included really good coaching situations. Brad Stevens and Popovich. This is the guy who recruited LeBron Hayward and a host of other free agents when he decided to sign and stay in Cleveland. And all of a sudden, LeBron came back.
Right.
So he was sold a totally different situation than he's actually in, and he worked very well in. He won a championship in, and I see this as him looking for a fit for himself now to take the next step in his career.
Dave, let me ask you, do you think there's any chance that the season can start with him still on the roster?
So I used to believe that because of the sheer amount of success they had together as a group. It's like, okay, we can get past this and just think about that. But there's no time for reconciliation because of LeBron's contract situation. There won't be a meeting of the minds, in my opinion. Now, you know, LeBron's camp has led me to believe that LeBron is open to playing with Kyrie if it comes to that, but that could be just a situation where, say, they make a trade with Minnesota and they want to get Jeff Teague back. The deal can happen until December 15th. For both sides, they should move on because the Cavs, probably any of the deals we've discussed, it gets them back to the NBA Finals. So if you can stay that level and you're not dealing with the cloud of discomfort that Kyrie has right now, both sides are better off.
Well, in pursuing a championship, you're either all the way in or you're all the way out. There's no in between. So this is a situation where if they know they're going to be better off apart, they need to get there and get there as quickly as they can.
So, Griff, when I asked you what's next for you, you talked about growth and fulfillment. Is this what Kyrie's searching for himself? Because people say, well, you're going to the finals every year. Is he searching for what is my peak, pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a guy who wants to know how good he can be. And, you know, Dave, you know this as well as anybody. LeBron casts a very large shadow over an organization. And most of it is really, really positive. I mean, you know you're expected to win a championship, by way of example. But what that doesn't always allow is for a player like Kyrie to test his boundaries a little bit and see how good he can really be. And can I actually be the front man of a team like that? And, again, the teams on his list, you know, Gordon Hayward in Boston and Kawhi Leonard in San Antonio.
Right.
He would be accompanying other great players. It's not like he's asking to go lead a ragtag bunch.
Right.
He just wanted to put himself in a position, I think, where he could find out exactly what he has as a 25-year-old entering his prime.
And I think there's less of the pressure of I'm playing alongside an all-time great.
Right.
And I'm preserving that legacy and I'm adding to that legacy versus I'm just playing with some great players who enjoy the game, are contemporaries of mine, and we can see what we can do together.
So, Griff, I'm going to ask you a tough question here. So one of the things that Ron Harper brought up that, you know, I don't say I agree with a lot of it, but there's a question there that he asked that I think is a really good question, which is, we all recognize the talent that Kyrie is. Why is it when LeBron doesn't play, the Cavs perform so poorly? And it's one thing to say, well, it's because it's built around LeBron, but shouldn't a player of Kyrie's caliber at least be able to break even and tread water? There are always large minuses in the net ratings when he's off the floor. They're probably 4-22, was it, Dave?
Yeah, over the last 3 years.
It's something that the record when he doesn't play. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think that's fair criticism, for one. I don't think he's figured out how to carry the mantle of a team and actually win games in that environment. None of the players on that team had learned how to do it before LeBron got there.
Right.
You know, that didn't grow organically. They didn't learn how to win together. What we did was we flipped the switch. And it's very difficult to be all about one thing, have that thing be out of a game, by way of example, in the LeBron situation, and then all of a sudden know how to do it without him. Right. I think everything was geared towards him to a degree, and not so much that he couldn't have carried the load. I think he probably didn't have enough expectation of himself to do it, because everybody just assumed, well, if we lose this one, it's okay.
Right.
And that's really my fault, I think. We had to do a better job of calibrating everybody towards when LeBron's not out of the game, that's opportunity for you. Right. And we need to grow and evolve, and we didn't do that well enough.
How do you balance that, though? How do you balance the goal of winning a championship right now versus I guess you call the personal development of the other guys on the roster?
Well, I mean, I think, again, you can do those things if when LeBron's sitting out, you have a whole nother game plan. Mm-hmm. And what that is we're going to develop X, Y, Z tonight. This is an opportunity to get better at something specific. And again, I don't think I drove that very well, and I don't think we did that in a good enough way.
At the same time, though, you prioritized what really mattered, which was health in the postseason. And there was the idea of built-in rest for not only LeBron, but Kyrie is also, you know, being his injury history. So I take you off the hook a little bit there because there was a clear vision being presented, and the shrapnel was, okay, we lose some regular season games.
Sure, no, I mean, we knew we were going to rest people, and everybody knew that there was going to be a game plan, but what we were doing during that period of time probably could have been more clearly enunciated, and I think we could have gotten more out of that.
One more answer for both of you guys. Early August, where does he land?
Minnesota, I think, would be the best deal the Cavs could get if they get Wiggins.
I don't know.
No, look at this guy. Oh, we got to break him of those front office habits. Let's get to the Clippers, who shook up the front office a bit over the weekend. Doc Rivers no longer serving in the front office after being relieved of those duties by owner Steve Ballmer. Rivers will remain the head coach and will work closely with Lawrence Frank, who will now oversee basketball operations. Dave, how should Doc react to this new role?
He should feel okay. If it wasn't Lawrence Frank taking over that role, I think it'd be a completely different situation. But that's his guy. He hired him. It's his consigliere. Right. So they're swapping titles more so than swapping roles, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And I think if you look at how Doc has dealt with every other big situation with the Clippers, most notably the Sterling transition, this is a guy who is a great leader. Right. And he will lead from the front, and he will embrace this and do what he needs to do to get the most out of his team.
Is there any part of this that's like riding first class and now being told you have to go back to riding coach?
Listen, if you care about winning and you trust the people you work with, that shouldn't matter. You should put your ego aside to try to win games. I think the thing that's interesting to me is how much influence Jerry West had in this decision. I was under the impression that Jerry West was brought in to try to bring LeBron James to the Clippers. That was the biggest, kind of carrot for that hire. Beyond that, I'm not so sure Jerry West came in there to say, Doc, you can't do that anymore, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think Jerry had much to do with this particular aspect of things. But I also think that, yes, it from an ego standpoint could be something that sets Doc back a bit, but nothing's a thing unless you make it a thing. Yeah. And if you embrace it and you become about what this allows for you to do, and I think Doc will do that, you can really benefit from this transition.
Plus, you don't have to deal with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin bickering next year. So you get that off the plate, you can deal with this other new turmoil.
It's definitely a full-time job. And we'll touch on that a little bit later about the concept of being able to do both jobs. But in the context of, basically we have one successful example in NBA, well, not in modern NBA history, and that's San Antonio. And so, Griff, what would you say San Antonio was different about what San Antonio does that allows them to do this thing that's the exception to the rule?
Well, I think Pop is a really unique thing. If Porzingis is the unicorn on the court, then Pop is the unicorn off the court. This is a guy whose number one piece is leadership. And what he's done is raise a family there. And it's really what we were trying to emulate to a huge degree as well. But this is a very, very difficult job to do and focus on both things, because tonight's coaching job means I must win tonight's game. That's what we were just talking about, developing. And front office people have to get better 2-3 years from now. And it's just a totally mutually exclusive job. And those are really divergent goals quite often. And so what San Antonio has done, because their best player was Tim Duncan and allowed for them to do the things that needed to happen, Pop was able to be Pop. In a world without Tim Duncan, in a world with a best player that doesn't allow for that, I don't think you ever get that.
Right, and the Austin Rivers deal apparently led to a lot of resentment in that locker room. And obviously, if there was a different GM in place, maybe Doc wouldn't have looked as complicit in that move.
Right. Well, we have to take a break, but when the jump returns, we'll ask Griff about the pressure of building a team around LeBron James. Babe Ruth will also be mentioned. Stay tuned.
Had a goal 2 years, and I came back to bring a championship to the city. I gave everything that I had. I poured my heart, my blood, my sweat, my tears to this game. Cleveland! This is for you! Oh!
You're really good at applauding, Griff. He spent 3 total years with LeBron in Cleveland, and LeBron has come out and said that he was not pulling the personnel strings behind the scenes. A lot of skeptics did not believe him, but you had this interesting quote in January saying, "You're basically charged with the legacy of Babe Ruth." Now, for his part, LeBron tweeted this after your departure, quote, "If no one appreciated you, Griff, I did, and hopefully all the people of Cleveland. Thanks for what you did for the team for 3 years. We got us one," and then there's a little trophy there. So let me ask you, Griff, what was the pressure like being the GM of LeBron James?
So it wasn't about being the GM for LeBron. It was really about being the GM for the Cavaliers. I mean, it's a team that had a very clear goal set. Dan Gilbert likes to say nothing clarifies like clarity. We existed to win championships. And when LeBron is on your team, the perception is you're already in the finals. And if you're any good at what I do, you have to win. Right. And so 29 teams are going to fail every year to live up to that. That was difficult. LeBron brought no more pressure to the situation than the actual situation itself did and what our goal set did. I mean, he wanted no part of bringing more pressure to it.
Well, and I think the way you described it publicly several times, it was a partnership, right? It would be just a bad use of your assets not to go to him for his ability to reach out to other players in the league or his opinion on other players in the league, various things of that nature. The parts where it became hard, I thought, doing your job was like, we're in New Orleans last year after a loss. LeBron's frustrated. And rather than talk about the loss, he calls out the state of the franchise and says all these things about what I want to do with the roster, et cetera, et cetera. And the general public takes that to be gospel as if it's just came into the air for the first time out of LeBron James' mouth, when really you and him had spoken about that ad nauseum for months leading up to that point with a clear vision behind the scenes. But then people took LeBron's words as if that's the singular vision out of LeBron's mind when really it was a partnership.
The other thing is there's two sides of this, right? There's a side where you're consulting with him, you're getting his bouncing ideas off him. There's another side where you have to be sometimes the boss and you have to come down. What's that like?
Well, that's a great example of it, actually. That the moment immediately after the New Orleans game, the next home game, was a situation where you had to let him know that we had gotten a little outside the lines and that this is what it needs to look like moving forward. LeBron's a basketball savant,
right.
And you're not doing your job if you don't talk to him about players. You have to do that because he knows more than most of us do. So from that standpoint, he was a great partner. But what happened after that New Orleans game had nothing to do with what he actually talked about at that given time, because we've been talking all season long about the need to have a backup point guard.
Right.
We lost that New Orleans game because we didn't guard anybody. And so what I talked to him about was, let's just make the main thing the main thing. And he's very, the one thing about LeBron that's really important, he's incredibly coachable. And he wants to do the right thing to win above all else. So.
Yeah, and I mean, again, LeBron can't be the GM if he literally has someone in David Griffin's position having those conversations with him.
Right.
Like, that only proves that you need to have someone with the clout and the perspective and the self-confidence in that gig to deal with a player like LeBron who has all those things as well.
Well, and he absolutely, to be clear, does not want to coach. He doesn't want to be the GM. This is a guy trying to win championships.
Right.
Being a full-time MVP caliber player is a job in and of itself.
He doesn't want to be Doc Rivers.
That's exactly.
I think it's perception more than reality.
It's a tough job, man. That's why the thing that people don't get is there's so much. It's not just roll the ball out and all right, bring us Darren Williams. And there's a lot that goes into all of this, and whether it's the coaching, whether it's the front office work, or as you said, whether it's being an MVP candidate. You don't have a lot of mental energy to devote to the other stuff. So, all right, let's go back to our days with the Suns, Griff. Our paths crossed for the better. Ooh, the script is amazing. Our paths crossed for the better part of 4 years here. You were the VP of basketball ops.
There has to be a better picture than that of me.
The sweat patches? Now, I had to knock you down a peg. People come in here thinking we're going to put some sheen on you. Like, no, that's not what we do here. What is your best Phoenix story?
It's interesting. You alluded to this earlier. Goran Dragic coming to us was a really, really big deal at the time. We had worked to get him sort of through the draft process and had been really fortunate that he wanted to be with us. And we were able to acquire a pick that San Antonio was going to use to take Goran. We actually traded with San Antonio to get the pick. And knowing at that moment in my life that we had somehow done something and gotten over on San Antonio, that stuck with me because Goran is about all of the right things. He remains one of my absolute favorite players I've ever been with.
We need to know your best Amin the Dream story. That's the specific area.
Don't lie, because
expertise
Steve Kerr's out there spreading lies about me, about my pickup game and all that. So.
Most of that's probably true. But I do think my favorite story about Amin the Dream is that he is the only person that I knew at the time that observed Ramadan.
Okay.
And prior to that, Akeem was the only person really that I was aware of that observed it on a regular basis. Yeah. And Amin was very devout. And we started calling him Amin the Dream. He's not the nicest person in the world when he's not eating.
When he's hungry.
Look, first of all, I think I was plenty nice. Second of all, I hosted this show for the first time fasting. I had Scottie Pippen, I had Byron Scott. Show went perfectly. Our show went perfect. The last segment, my throat starts getting dry, and I start coughing. I can't drink any water to help myself. And these guys are just sitting there looking at me. And I said, and Scottie Pippen, who always plays it straight, for the first time ever, starts cracking jokes. And so I'm laughing, and laughing is making me cough harder, and just wasn't a good day for me there.
Somebody, some guys are better teammates than others.
Yeah. Shout out to Scotty. All right, we're not done here on the jump. The NBA was in Africa this past weekend, and we got a couple of great shots to compare. Jalen and Kristaps, we'll judge them next.
I like that one.
Yeah. Let's alley-oop, though. It's the little touch pass over there.
Volleyball.
Tonight on ESPN at 10 p.m. Eastern, we have game one of the three-game set between the Cubs and the Giants at AT&T Park. Right after the game is over, stick around for SportsCenter at night with Scott Van Pelt looking to adjust his tie. And remember, all this great programming is also streaming live on the ESPN app. Time for Make a Miss. Hey, creativity. NBA Africa game over the weekend, Jaylen Brown getting fancy on the finish. Yeah, and then we see Kristaps Porzingis with the N1 tip off the lob. Grip, which was a more impressive finish.
I'm going to take Jalen, but Basketball Without Borders was one of the most under-the-radar important things that happens in the NBA from an impact standpoint. That and USA Basketball.
I like to hold my Jordan-esque, when I use that phrase, but that was Jordan-esque from Jaylen Brown. Reminds me of Jordan versus the Nets.
We need Marv Albert to tell us that. It was a spectacular move. All right, Miss Fundamentals. Some Korean comedians brought inflatables onto the court trying to stop Steph. Dave, is this the best D on Korea since Delhi in 2015? Really, scriptwriters?
That's a good call now.
Hey, he blocks his shot left-handed. Kyrie did that.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Oh, come on.
They won that game.
What are we doing here? Really, what are we doing?
They lost that game.
They lost.
They went to overtime.
Yeah.
Went to overtime.
Yeah, this is game one. All right. And let's see. This just in at the buzzer. Wolves owner Glenn Taylor tells the Minnesota Star-Tribune that the team plans to give Andrew Wiggins a max extension, and he is not available in any trades. Griff, what does this mean for a potential Kyrie trade?
Scratch off one potential destination.
Yeah,
You lose from your earlier.
I know. Can we
guess.
revise the earlier portion of the show? So that's not going to happen. So what's the best option right now? Maybe Boston? Can they actually give up some of those assets to secure Kyrie Irving? That's the question.
Honestly, I think this is posturing, man. I think this is the thing you say because you're trying to put the screws on.
I don't think you can go back from that, though. As an owner, once you say that, I don't think you can go back.
You traded the #1 overall pick.
I never said I wouldn't trade him. That's different.
Thanks to Griff and Dave McMenamin for joining me today. Griff is back tomorrow on The Jump. Come back. Griff, your debut, how'd you feel?
Very comfortable, but I was with friendly fire here.
There we go.
I'm going to be a lot rougher tomorrow. We're going to start with hardball questions. Sports Nation is next, guys. Take it easy.